caught you smoking a cigarette outside the flashing lights of the blue and yellow Ferris wheel. Wearing a black top hat and overworn coattails, I waited. My illusionist. You always left me wishing, leaving me in a trail of Houdinis. I was searching for boys with locks on their wrists and water in their lungs. And I guess I got so used to their disappearing acts and the doves out of thin air that I stopped expecting anything other than optical illusions and birthday party performances. Waiting for you to raise me like the crystal balls you so elegantly made float, I was left with nothing but falling quarters behind my ears and papered flowers between my fingers, searching for something to make me feel more than the mind games and card tricks ever could have. So I went walking along the desert, pulling slot machines and buying tickets to shows I planned on drinking through, but under the blinding light of Vegas, in a crowded, worn-out theater where David Copperfield waved his hands and flicked his fingers, I felt a twinge of childhood excitement that holidays and sporting events never seemed to ignite in me. And I guess I got so sick of dying rabbits and broken scarves, and I ran out of time to keep putting myself back together after the saw would split me into two. I finally realized that my days as a magician's daughter and a trick deck dealer were finally over. And when I stopped searching, I found my sleeveless, cardless prints behind the clear glass open doors of a closet in a room I never thought I'd walk into. Woo! Yeah! It's called Peace Corps, or Poem to a Random Guy Still Sitting at Starbucks.
All right.
The clean-cut, straight-teethed young man sat at a large, empty Starbucks table in the center of the northeast side of San Antonio. He laid out 17 Peace Corps labeled ballpoint pins. His new laptop sat under his chair, full of PowerPoint presentations and off-kilter vacations. He was ready to share his calling to those that had called him. After 5 minutes went by, he put away 6 of the pins, checked his watch again, and prayed that someone, anyone, would show up. See, the young man, finding himself, was centered solely on the concept of losing himself. With his buttoned-up shirts and freshly pressed socks, he found himself alone more often than he found anything else. He talked with a voice rich of articulation, for he found that if he perfected his style, someone would have to listen. And the problem he found was while they heard, they hardly ever listened. And noise is just noise until made important. And at 27, he hardly felt important. His nostrils were always too big, and his manlyhood was always too small, and he carried these unbalances like an upside-down tipping scale. Yes. But after his first trip to an unknown country, an extremely faraway continent, he found meaning in the face his father had once cursed at. But the water hurt his stomach, and the mosquitoes gave him rashes, and while he could push through nights in the makeshift bathroom and days of itching skin, he couldn't seem to fight through the deep-rooted, fear-inducing, deep, dark pulsing hallucinations that came with the preventative malaria pills he popped like a kid eating broccoli. Then after 37 weeks of reliving his childhood abuse in the form of purple and pink-colored sky-filled images, he picked life over dreams, booked a flight back to Texas, and signed up for recruiting. So when 16 minutes passed without a pin grab at his Wednesday weekly meetup, the young man wanted to give up. And as he started to pack up his Peace Corps label notepad, a young lady with a tall vanilla latte and nowhere else to turn grabbed a chair, stuck her hand out, and asked for something to live for. Oh.
Yeah. Can't do it today.
It had been too long since she hurt someone. Like a snooze button you dream through so many times that you forget what you were snoozing through to finally actually get to. She felt the absence of other people's pain like a silence of a fan you only knew was ever on once it turns off. Never knowing how hungry she was until the grumbling in her stomach became the humming in her heart. She was ready to hurt again. Feel the pang of guilt over the sickness of anger. She tied her wrist to the steering wheel and lined her eyes with so much makeup she knew she would never see the red lights in his eyes and the stop signs in his pants. She got her ears so drunk on cherry vodka sours that the only thing she heard were sweeter than the canned cherries at the bottom of her glass. Because if you weren't hurting anyone, you were being hurt by someone, and she never understood why she thought love always felt like hunting season. But as the cheetah can't help but search, her insides sparked with feelings of predator-parent relationships she escaped by running off to Africa. She thought it was glamorous like the memoir that came out of it, but really, she only loved Isaac Denison because the woman had syphilis and talked about it. A 1920 sexual martyr, she fantasized about laying on her back in the middle of a stage and opening her mouth in ways only her legs knew. See, the girl was always hurting herself. And after the spinning blades of the ceiling fan had fought the sweat beads off of her neck, she had forgotten why she ever decided he could sleep there. See, the girl was ready to feel something different than the numb and aftershock of being hit by a car over and over again. Even after the training wheels came off and the helmet came on, she wore her heart on her left knee, but every time that quick blue Mustang ran into her, the bottom part of her body crashed onto the ground below, and the semen scratched her left knee like it was rubbing a scratch-off ticket and knew it wouldn't win. And she was ready to be off the road and on the four wheels, and even though it was against her beliefs on karma and God, she wanted to hurt someone again. It was time again. Been too long since the high school breaks and late night rejection, she was ready to hurt someone again. And in the moonlight, with her lights off and her sunglasses on, she was certain she would.